The Global Day of Action for Climate Justice, picket, heads to Parliament as world leaders gather for the COP26 climate talks in Glasgow. Our Newzroom Afrika reporter Nasiphi Same joins us live from outside Parliament. Nasiphi, protesters are taking their plight to the doorsteps of Parliament. What's happening there?
Well, Ntantla, what I can say is that the group, organizing themselves under the Rural Women Assembly, have said that they are mobilizing in about 10 SADC countries and obviously targeting national key points in those various countries. This is also as world leaders are meeting in Glasgow for the UN COP26. And they are here outside Parliament as much as it is in recess. They are hoping that their voices are echoed all the way to Glasgow regarding the climate crisis that the world is actually facing. But to talk to us more about this picket, I'm joined by Ulungisa Wuna here from the Rural Women Assembly, who is the co-coordinator for South Africa. Ma'am, thank you so much for your time. But let's talk about why was it so important to come to a Parliament and have this picket here?
It was important because this is the seat of high decision-making body in South Africa. We chose this place as South Africa, Rua, South Africa, whereas in other rural parts of South Africa, there are women who are meeting and gathered, raising their voices on joining forces on the Global Day of Action on the climate crisis. So we wanted to join forces with the global movement on climate justice. We are calling out our leaders to hear us from the ground up, to understand the frustration that we have in relation to the climate crisis and the fact that we have very little contribution to the emissions. And it's actually the huge countries and the industrial countries that are contributing to the climate crisis that we are facing now.
Okay, so South Africa has one of the most progressive policies on paper regarding tackling climate change and climate crisis. Do you believe that our country and other leaders that are currently in Glasgow are in climate denial, or there is hope for the future that they will be able to contain this crisis that you speak of?
There is denialism, and I'll tell you why I say so. I will characterize in the fact that there is very little or lack of commitment financially for a just transition that addresses issues that are facing the people on the grassroots. The leaders are meeting in Glasgow. There's very little voice that is allowed from civil society organizations like the Rural Women Assembly, like the children, like the girl children, and the masses on the ground. So we feel that unless they put money where their mouth is, where their commitment, there is a lack of commitment. We haven't seen any change for all the COPs that have said year in, year out, signed declarations, signed agreements. Very little has changed. We have policies, you are right, but these policies are just on paper. We want actions, and we want action today. We do not see a future without action being done today.
Okay, so why do you think it is that we aren't seeing any action? You talk about the COPs that have happened in the previous years. However, no implementation or outcomes have been implemented there. Why aren't we seeing any actions from these leaders?
It's a lack of commitment because they are captured. I want to use that word, captured. We are captured. They are captured because of the industrial system. It's all systematic. It's all structural. We want crisis climate justice now. We don't want another catastrophic situation which we have seen. We have experienced the climate crisis even in our country. We've seen droughts that we have never seen before. In the city of Cape Town, where we are right now, we were facing a day zero. Why so? Because of the crisis. And what action has been taken to deal with that? What action has been taken to deal with energy crisis that we have? We are having load shedding as it is now. Everything is dependent on Eskom. It's dependent on coal. When we have solar and we have wind, why aren't we using those alternative ways of generating energy? So if they were committed and they wanted to see change, they could implement the change.
Lungisawuna there from Rural Women Assembly talking to us about their pickets. But you see that there's a number of people actually behind us. I want to rope in someone from one of the communities. Budwamsonet, do you mind just putting on your mask, please? Budi, let's talk about, you said earlier on that you are from COVID-19 informal settlement, which is one of the many informal settlements established during the COVID-19 pandemic. But you're here today. How has climate change impacted the community that you live in or impacted your life?
Okay. It's affected because sihlala kwizindlu ezikwi-flags most izindlu zethu, more than 4,000 houses ezikwi-flags. Abantu abaninzi baphele beyizile imizi yabo bengasahlali emizini yabo ngenxa yoba kumanzi indawo sihlala kuyo. Kunzima ke even ke ngona kwindawo kuthiwa bafuna bazithumile ngasese ukwazi ukuzireliva because ingxaki kuyo yonke indawo kumanzi kuyo yonke indawo. Secondly, njengoba sikwimeko enjalo nje sinenye ucinezelelo esinalo esijongene nalo engabi namanzi kunye nee-toilets. So ngona yenza ukuthi loo nto leyo ucinezelelo kwindawo esihlala kuyo liye liba mandla.
Thank you so much. Ubudi there from COVID-19 informal settlement, talking about how climate change has actually impacted their lives. And we know that COVID-19 informal settlement falls under Mfuleni, one of the informal settlements established during the COVID-19 pandemic, where a number of people lost their jobs. He is there talking about the fact that almost 4,000 houses where he is coming from currently, submerged in water, saying that the various areas that they're living in, when we do experience heavy rains in the Western Cape, their homes become submerged in water. Earlier on, he also spoke about the fact that they aren't able to have proper or decent sanitation in the various communities that they live in because of the soil and also the flooding that is in their communities. So we will be speaking to a number of people here. But I have also reached out to one of the South Africa's climate warriors who is currently in Glasgow, have joined the number, or the hundreds and thousands of people outside the UN COP26 protest in Glasgow. And hopefully we'll hear from her as to why she went all the way to Glasgow and her thoughts on what is currently happening. Earlier on, I spoke to her over the phone and she had a number of things to say in regards to how climate change has impacted children, not only in South Africa, but throughout the world, and how world leaders have neglected them as children by not implementing, policies that will be mitigating climate change and ultimately seeing the globe facing a climate change crisis.
That's our reporter out in Parliament, Nasiphi Same, giving us an update. And of course, as mentioned, this meeting, or rather this protest, happens as the COP26 meeting is playing out in Glasgow.